The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live. As the mom of a young man on the autism spectrum, I frequently look to the world and hope for compassion. Well, recently I told my son that he should treat others the way he wants them to treat him. That's when I realized that it's high time that I start walking my talk. This April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to perform an act of compassion. Do something nice for someone else. That's why I've decided to shave my head to show support for a young dad who's fighting brain cancer. How will you show your compassion? Compassion is a tool of change, but only when we take action. How we treat others teaches them how to treat us in return. This April, the autism community has the ability to lead by example by putting compassion in action. This can be a small act or a large one. It can be close to home or towards someone on the other side of the planet. If we all perform an act of compassion, who knows? We might just change the world. Get involved and show us your compassion in action on Facebook.com/autismlive. And tune in on April 8th to watch me shave my head live on the air. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Welcome back. This is Compassion in Action right here. And Mark Christopher Lawrence, star of Stage and Screen, is about to take a swath down the middle of my hair. While he does that, we had a comment that just came in from someone. A friend of mine was just diagnosed with breast cancer a few months ago. The day before her first chemo treatment, I took her to a tattoo shop and I got a cancer tattoo for her to show her my support for her. For my mom, who is a breast cancer survivor, and my best friend's mom, who passed away a few years ago also with breast cancer. Not that I'm dissing your new haircut style today. I personally just want to do something a little more permanent to show my friends and family how much I love and support them. And I love that comment. We all do. It's whatever the compassion is that you...
I mentioned to you that I would be willing to add another tattoo on my body this month. And I want to know if she could write us back. A cancer tattoo, did that mean the sign of cancer? What did she have put on? Because I'm interested in that. My husband is also battling cancer and has been for a number of years. Yes. So I'd be willing to put a new tat. I have my cross, my warrior tat, but I'd happily put another one on.
There you go. Okay. There you go. And we have another message that they're watching us from room 17. We've got a group of young fourth graders who are watching us. As we take the hair off. So here we go. Hi, room 17. All right. Whenever you're ready, Mark, go for it.
All right. I'm going to give some play-by-play here.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Mark is...
And this is beautiful, thick hair.
It really is. Beautiful. We'll just sweep it off the floor later.
And there we go.
Okay, the first cut.
There's no turning back now.
The first cut is the deepest. I think that's what Sheryl Crow sings. And now we've got... Okay, Mark is doing sort of a reverse mohawk.
Yes.
We've got kind of a reverse mohawk action
it's the
going on here.
Bozo the Clown look.
I think Shannon may... Do we want to save some of this?
For what?
I don't
gardening?
know.
Organic gardening?
I don't know. You
what are we saving that for?
You might want to put a lock you might want to put some in a locket to remember this moment.
And I want to remind everybody that this is for compassion in action, and your compassion in action is whatever you choose.
I'll take the hair, Mark. I'm going to put it over here.
I'm molting. I'm choosing to shave my head for a young dad with cancer, but you can do whatever feels right for you during this month of Autism Awareness Month.
We have some other ideas for you. You can volunteer at a local school, a shelter, or a senior center.
Absolutely.
That's another one that we have.
You know, those are places where you can show up and help people out.
A homeless center where you could go and, you know, help them serve food. Okay. Shannon's got a racing stripe now down the center of her head. And it's looking very,
it's a nice little vibration. I was afraid it was going to hurt, but it's a nice little vibration.
Like you know, the guide sort of shields your head.
Thank heavens that Mark...
When your hair is really long. You know,
we need a little brush here to get it off your face.
Well, and I keep talking so it goes in my mouth.
Yeah.
This is one way to shut me up.
Maybe somebody could get me a little makeup brush so I can, you know, kind of...
I'm loving this.
And around your neck, maybe we might want to get, you know how at the barber, they kind of fluff you off.
Yeah, I got a makeup brush somewhere.
Okay, look, we got a lot of hair over here.
Mark's not messing around.
No,
he's getting it done.
Serious.
Yeah. All right, and there we go.
This is like the length where you can't stop touching it.
Oh, really?
Touch it.
Okay.
I'm going to be like Buddha. Instead of people wanting to rub my belly, they're...
Okay, so...
Oh, yeah, no, that's nice.
Let me feel.
And it's got to be all gray at that point, right?
Yeah, it's a little gray there.
Yeah.
It's a little gray there.
We're full disclosure here, no green screen and the roots.
Okay.
Looking good. All right.
Looking great.
All right. I think we should take a quick break and get Monica Holloway in here. Monica Holloway, of course, author of Cowboy and Wills, a very fun autism mom that joins us on Monday morning. So let's get her in here, and we'll let Mark keep on plugging.
I think you should leave this little curl right here then.
One little curl in the middle. Okay.
And I think we need a brush to get the...
We have a makeup brush. All right, so stick with us. More head shaving after these messages.
Come. I'm here to assist.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take an old pair of nylons that you have. You're going to cut off the toe. And what you're going to do is you're going to take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm going to take my dirt and pour that in. And we want to make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm going to pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll want to come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little ball, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're going to go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends, and you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We got a crowd growing here because we're here shaving my head for Compassion in Action. Of course, we have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment today. We have the fabulous Monica Holloway, author of the book Cowboy and Wills, one of my favorite books ever. And standing here doing the honors, it's Mark Christopher Lawrence, star of Chuck and Glee. So thrilled to have all of you here with me. We're shaving away, and Monica,
Yes.
You said it feels pretty soft,
It
yes?
feels really soft. It's very sweet.
And you got a comment, are you going to do the fuzz or
Yes.
squeaky clean?
Somebody said, yes, are you wondering, are you going to go fuzz or squeaky when all is said and done? We have somebody who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes when we're all done who is going to make it squeaky.
Oh, my goodness.
We're doing the full Monty here, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but Mark's doing a great job. I'm going to be a little fuzzy for a few minutes, and then we're going to shave it completely off.
He's doing my legs next. Oh, that's not a good
You
visual.
don't do bikini wax,
Not a
do you?
good
Whatever you need.
All still on here. Okay. So we also have had a comment. As you know, I'm shaving my head to show compassion for a young dad with cancer, but I've been saying his last name incorrectly.
Okay.
It's Ryan Oaf is how you pronounce it, and his family is watching. They've written in and said that we're so grateful for my actions, the donation to match it, and the inspiration you're bringing. We thank you because we know that you guys are working hard, and you've got a job there to do, and we just want to show our support and love. So it's Ryan Oaf, but you can go to Fighting for Ryan to learn more about Ryan. So go for it, Mark, whenever you're ready.
And we're off and running.
And we've got a bunch more questions here. While you're doing that, I'm just going to... apparently, they're watching us in Jack Riley's house. The A-word family
Okay.
has written
We
in
love
and
them.
said that they're watching.
Riley.
And we've gotten a message from the folks here at CARD that they've tuned in and are
Okay,
watching
good.
here at the Center for
Good.
Autism and Related Disorders.
Yeah, the whole building's watching.
And if you're watching at home and have some words that you want to say, or you want to tell us what you're doing for Compassion in Action, how about we've got
Here's
some different
another one.
ideas.
We do.
Monica and Nancy have things to do.
Monica, I'm going to do number 3.
Sure, call or spend some time with someone you know is going through a tough time.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Very important. And I walked in here this morning and said to Shannon, my son Wyatt had one of the worst tantrums. I mean, it was like reminiscent of 2 or 3 years ago. And I came in, I've got scratches all over me and bruises, for where my husband and I were holding him last night. And it really floored me. And just your words of support, saying sometimes we get a regression, sometimes, we have these things before a big improvement. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, too, that it was his way last night of letting off steam about nervousness about his school week, because it's a heavy-duty week. But, of course, I went right back to that place of, oh, my God, is he regressing? Oh, my God, are the tantrums coming back? Because we haven't had one like that in so long. So if you know an autism family or any family that's dealing with any setback, call them. If you've got somebody on your mind, today's the day to pick up that phone, call them and say, I am with you. I have got your back. If you need me, I'm here for you. That means so much to families dealing with autism, cancer. What would we have done without our support team?
Oh, my gosh.
When our kids were really going through the roughest of times.
Exactly.
Yeah?
I just put on my Facebook page on Friday, I just said, I said a call to action, a call to support, and a call to kindness. Loving autism as best I can this morning because I was having trouble.
You were too?
And I got this call from a friend of mine in San Francisco who I met through Facebook, and she's a writer, and I know her through Facebook, but she's never called me. She picked up the phone and left me this, Jill Dodd, thank you. I mean, what an amazing thing you did. And this long message to me about, look, I'm an autism mom. I know you're an autism mom. I get this feeling that you could use some support. This is where I'm going to be today. Please call me back. I mean, you did this. You did this. So thank you.
Great. So important. There is nothing like that personal touch, the sound of a voice. We do so much through social media, Facebook, email. The sound of a voice can really comfort and keep you going for the fight, right?
Yes, it makes a really big difference.
And it's really all about compassion. And I have to say, You are two awesome autism moms, and that's something that you guys have so in common, and you guys have been and continue to be an inspiration to people. I'm getting fuzzy on the face. You're working hard up there, Mark.
Okay, I want to do this next one.
Can I also say too that you're two moms who have been affected by cancer as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And you know that. I think a lot of times people think that autism happens in a vacuum with nothing else going on, and it's quite the
real life
contrary,
happens
right?
while autism is happening,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So I appreciate having both of you ladies here with me for this moment.
Okay.
How you doing back there, Mark?
All right. I want to do this.
The rat's nest, right?
I want to do this next step because I think it's so important. For those of you that are in a position to do so, give an internship to a young person on the autism spectrum.
Amen to that.
I cannot say enough about this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
When our kids become teenagers and young adults, they need every helping hand they can get. And the best way to do that is to teach them skills. And the best way to learn skills is to get an internship. Now, there are some wonderful organizations like Best Buddies that give placement in wonderful work environments. Do you know of any other ones, Monica, that do anything like that?
I don't, but I just got a call this morning from the mother of my son's best friend.
Okay.
Her name is Addie, and she decided she's 16 that she would like to have a job this summer. So she, on her own, walked down. Well, she walked with her mother, but she went in by herself at a sandwich shop called Say Cheese in Silver Lake.
Okay.
And she asked, could she help unpack the boxes this summer?
Okay.
Did they have anybody that could do that?
Awesome.
And they said, of course you can do that. And so we know because we know Addie, and she's a bright and amazing girl, that she'll be doing a lot more than unpacking
Of course,
boxes
that's
when
the
she
first
starts.
step.
But this, I mean, she's been going there her whole life, so they know her. And they were so open and receptive, and her mom said to me on the phone in tears, she has her first job, she got it herself, and she got it on her own merit.
What an awesome confidence builder. And our kids really need that confidence.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a short break so that we can give poor Mark a break, and we're going to oil the clippers.
Okay, let's get more hair over here.
And we're going to be back with more head shaving and more ideas of how you can show compassion
Guess we're gonna have to vacuum
after these
later.
messages. Stick with us.
Okay, we'll vacuum later.
Hi, we're here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And today I'm thrilled to have her here because we're going to talk about manding. What is manding?
A request that you would make of another person.
Why is manding one of the first things that seems to come up in most programs?
Okay. Well, a baby requests for his mother's attention by crying or by reaching. And so it's one of the first ways that you let another person know what you need. And then that other person reinforces you by either picking you up or giving you something to drink or something to eat. And so many of our clients aren't really good at that once we start a program with them. And unfortunately, many of them engage in inappropriate manding, screaming, kicking, biting. And so what we're trying to do early on is no longer reinforce the inappropriate ways of asking and rather reinforce the appropriate ways of asking. And as we teach them an appropriate way to ask for, Mom, play with me, can I have juice, or, even more simply, help, then we see those inappropriate demands decreasing and the appropriate demands increasing, because the child's wants and their desires aren't really changing, but we're teaching them the right way to get their needs met.
So manding doesn't have to actually be spoken. It can be nonverbal as well.
And that's exactly right. They could exchange an icon. And if I bring you an icon with a cup on it and hand it to you, and you bring me a juice cup, then we've made an exchange. And so there is what Skinner would call verbal behavior. You have reinforced my request for a cup or for juice.
So when we say verbal behavior, we're not talking about vocal behavior necessarily.
That's right.
It's just that it's a conversation of some sort.
what is reinforcing to the child? The man is evoked by the child's desire or their need for something. So early on, we may arrange the situation where I know that they're interested in the juice and they're reaching for it. I may hold it back to just say juice or ja or whatever is appropriate for that child. And then as soon as they emit any sort of response, give a high level of praise and then immediately give them the juice. So what controls the man is that specific reinforcer. So of course, if the child asks for a juice cup and you bring something else, then they're not being reinforced with what they asked to have.
Okay. What do you want? Wait for please. You say wait for please. Wait for please. Good talking. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Daddy.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We've got quite a crew here. I got Nancy. It's a party. Nancy Jackson from Act Today is with us. A wonderful, fabulous, amazing author Monica Holloway of Cowboy and Wills is here with us. And this bright, shining face, Mark Christopher Lawrence, is here, and he is shaving my head. We're doing compassion in action.
Is this the first time you've shaved a woman's head?
That's a pretty personal question.
He said no.
No. I shaved Carol Foreman's head years ago at Los Angeles Theater Center.
All right, there we go.
Right.
So
this
we got the experienced person.
All right.
Did you
So
know that?
I did not know that.
You're
We were
not
talking on
spiritual.
Saturday about the fact that he'd shaved his own head, so
Yeah.
I knew he had some expertise besides being a fabulous actor,
Right.
and a fabulous comic. But so we're going to let Mark go ahead. We've oiled the clippers, hopefully. And we got a lot more comments here. The card SGC office is watching. Another person who said the Floridian fans are watching.
Right.
And my husband has written in and said, "Looking good, sweetheart." And he said, enjoy the breeze.
Now
That's from my husband.
That's a great husband.
Card San Diego is watching.
Love Card San Diego. We saw them at the run on Saturday. They really raised a lot of money for Act Today. We love you, Card San Diego.
Another person who says, I love how you're giving for someone in such a personal way. But you know what, as somebody mentioned before, others were talking about tattoos, and someone has suggested maybe Monica would like to get an autism awareness tattoo.
Okay.
And they've given us a link because you had asked for what kind of so they've given us a link here of different tattoos, which is great.
Good. I'll do it. I'll do one. I'm ready to go.
Like autism, Alzheimer's, or cancer. I think Alzheimer's and cancer.
Autism for me.
And Alzheimer's are closest to me.
You're affected by Alzheimer's.
I know that my husband Michael's watching from Fox Studios, from The Simpsons.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know you don't want me to get a tattoo, but I think I will too, because when I saw it out there, I was like, nothing,
I got one. Come on now.
I wanted one for a long time, and this is a perfect cause.
And we've had a message from Dr. Doreen Grampachet, who says, Shannon, I love your new hairstyle. Thank you. It's going to change significantly in the next couple of minutes. Somebody else who writes in and says, looking great. Now, you had some messages that came in.
From Las Vegas, Nevada, we've got Beverly Nelson Peters, who's just a love, just had her 50th birthday. I hope it's okay that I say that, but you know, I'm way ahead of you. I'm 50. And Beverly's watching from Las Vegas, and that's exciting. And Eileen Fogarty is watching from downtown. She just moved, I almost said the west side, but she's downtown. So hi, Eileen, and hi, Beverly. I'm glad you guys are watching.
I have to say, I just had my 50th birthday in September, and years ago, recently?
September.
And years ago, a friend of mine, for her 50th birthday, she shaved her head, and it looked so bad. Can I tell you, like, there was a big thing afterwards. She said, I'm doing it, I'm setting myself free at 50, and it looked so bad, and I wrote down in my journal, note to self, do not shave your head for your 50th birthday under no circumstances.
Oh, well.
And yet, here I am.
Well, but
it's not for my 50th birthday. It's for Ryan.
For Ryan
Oath. You can check him out on Facebook.
Let's remind everybody what we're doing today.
Yes.
Autism Awareness Month. Shannon is doing an act of compassion for a man who is battling cancer.
Yes, a young dad,
a young dad named
daughter.
Ryan Oath.
Ryan Oath.
Okay.
You can find his Facebook page and see pictures of Ryan at Fighting for Ryan. So go to Facebook, Fighting for Ryan. So I haven't met Ryan. I don't know him, but his story touched me at a time when I felt like I needed to do something.
Right.
And I know we've talked about this before, ladies, as autism parents, that sometimes your own stuff piles up and there's nothing you can do about it, but having the opportunity to do something for somebody else lightens our load, and it gives to them.
It puts it in perspective,
That's
right, Monica?
It puts it in perspective, and it gives you a lot of energy.
It does.
It's amazing how much more energy I have when I'm putting something into somebody else. Then I remember, like, oh, and then I can do this for myself.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? It's easier. And sometimes when I'm struggling, I've been told this, and it's worked for me. Think of you as your sister, like my sister who I love, or think of you as a friend. Would you treat a friend like that? Would you ignore a friend's need? Try to think of yourself like that, which is hard to do.
It's hard.
It's hard to do.
It's hard to be kind and love yourself.
Oh.
But self-love and love for others, and when you give back, you receive. That is just, we know, it's scientific. There were studies done that show that what makes people feel better is to do something good for somebody else. It takes you out of your own sort of self-absorbed place, too, because it's really easy. You know, when we're going through tough times as autism moms, I call it the kitchen floor club, when you're down on that kitchen floor saying, why me?
Right.
Well, you know, why not? Because let's face it, we all have special abilities that allow us to be the best parents we can to these children. And we can go beyond that and help others by sharing, by giving them that pat on the back. So we've asked you to do a few things today to give kind words of encouragement to another person going through a struggle. We've asked you to volunteer at a shelter, homeless shelter, maybe a senior center, maybe going and playing with a school where they have disabled children, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Have a fundraiser for Act Today. We're asking you to donate to Act Today, $1. Everything helps. Throwing a lemonade sale, a brownie sale, a car wash for your high school. Go to act-today.org. Learn more. Here's a good one.
Guys, Matt Asner.
I love
Matt. Speaks. Great shot. Way to go, Shannon.
Well, Matt, we love you.
Matt, we want you to come and be on the show soon.
Yeah, we definitely want Matt on the show, and will you please tell your father that I still have the biggest crush on him. I heard that he's getting better. He had a little setback.
Yes.
And one of the greatest moments of my life when I said, please tell me just one thing. You got spunk, girl. And he told me that, and it's one of my all-time favorite moments.
And, of course, Ed Asner, one of those remarkable people that we were talking about the other day, both a grandfather of a child on the spectrum and a dad.
Right.
You know,
we love the Asners.
Everything you can.
Yeah.
Everything you can.
They're the greatest guys.
Nelson Peters in Las Vegas just says to me, yay, 50 and proud. Don't be afraid to say it. So she's happy I said she's 50.
Good. Okay, I'm going to be 58 in May.
No, you should not disclose that. You look too good for that.
Great.
I can't wait.
We have to take a little bit of a break here. I think we might get some scissors to help Mark out. You're plugging away. You're just being so good working away at it, but we've gotten to the thick part of my hair.
I have another suggestion. It's something that Dr. Doreen is doing. So,
yes?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Dr. Doreen, our fearless leader at CARD and who founded Act Today, is having her 25th celebration of her 25th birthday next weekend. And she, in lieu of gifts, is asking for donations to go to Act Today.
That's a great idea.
Isn't it?
Great idea.
Yeah, and Susan Cross, who comes in here as one of our our lifestyle expert for autism moms, she and I are holding a birthday beauty bazaar where we're giving others manicures, pedicures, spray tans, all this, and in lieu of gifts, donations to Act Today.
Love it. All right, more ideas of what you can do for Compassion Action and more head shaving after these messages. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about an allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
It's full of crap, and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not...
Personality, we can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour. And often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg-full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And, of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild, let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. The crew gets bigger.
Party. It's a
We're welcoming
party.
Alex Plank to the party.
With our buddy
Alex
Alex.
from wrongplanet.net. If you have individuals that you know that are on the autism spectrum that are a little bit older, you got to go to wrongplanet.net. Alex has an amazing site there, and you're a filmmaker. You make amazing films.
Yes, that's true.
He's tweeting at the moment, in between,
tweeting.
And which is important.
Tweeting and brushing.
Tweeting and brushing at the same time.
Autism Live.
I got scissors.
Yes,
Right,
I will stop moving because Mark has scissors.
All right.
And of course, we have Mark Christopher Lawrence here, fabulous actor. You know him as Big Mike on Chuck, and now he's playing Unique's dad on Glee. And today he's a hairstylist. Let me know when you need me to take out my earpiece because we don't want to cut that.
No.
That would be bad. Would be really bad. So Mark is just working. The rest of us are sitting and having a party, and Mark is working his
And
fingers
you
to
know
the bone.
what? I gotta say, this is not a bad look.
It's really not.
I mean, once this side goes off, you know.
I can see in the monitor that I look like Bozo the Clown.
Well, that's because of the side piece.
That's just,
where it is.
we're in process.
That's where it's at. It's a
the thing that I'm looking at
process.
is you don't have like right corners on your head.
No.
You got a head for it.
Can I tell you, my
you
mom
have a nice head.
My mom had a technique when babies were born of rolling them every so often so that it rounded out their heads so
Oh,
they
really?
didn't have a pointed head. So
Okay.
I've always
Nobody
wondered
did
if
that
it
for me.
actually worked.
Wait, really explain this.
Nobody
Yeah.
did that for me. I feel sure.
No, I don't think I've got
When
bumps
babies
in
are,
my head.
oh, I have those. When babies are born, you know, there's like the three pieces of the skull, and there's the soft spot in the middle.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
Yeah.
it on a newborn's? I'm sorry, I'm moving. On a newborn's head, there you see the pulse in the beginning, and over the first couple of months, it grows together. And if a baby gets laid on its back endlessly, sometimes they have a flat head.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, they have a pointed head
Right.
or more to one side. And so
Yeah.
my mother had this theory that if you rolled a baby, that you would get a perfectly round head. And I've always wondered if it was.
Well, I
We're
think
about
it
to
worked
find
for you.
out.
We're about to find out.
I think it worked for you.
So we'll
I
see.
do.
I think my sister rolled me down the stairs.
There we
Often.
Yeah, well, okay. This is really
Starting
coming
to shape
along
up
here. Yeah.
We had to give up on the clippers for a brief period of time because it's just too thick.
Too much hair.
It's too long,
Okay,
too
now
thick.
speaking of hair and like
and why we're doing
clutter,
this is compassion in action. We're asking everybody during this Autism Awareness Month to take some action to show compassion for someone else.
Yes.
My action is shaving my head for a young dad with cancer, Ryan Oaf. You can find him at Fighting for Ryan on Facebook. And I don't know Ryan, but there's a lovely picture of Ryan and his family. This is a young dad.
Oh, what a beautiful family.
Isn't that a lovely family? So we're doing our shout out to Ryan. This is for him. But of course, we're asking for all of you to find what your action is. How do you want to show compassion for somebody? And throughout the show, Nancy's been sharing with us different ideas of things that you can do. So Nancy, you've got another one, and this is a good one.
Yes.
This is the one that I need to do next.
Donate your clutter. Someone else needs it. Now, there are donation places all around our city, Los Angeles, for Salvation Army and other different places for homeless. It's time for spring cleaning, right? Anyway, ladies?
Yes.
And even if you did, if it's overwhelming to you, they say do one drawer a day or one drawer a week. And go in the closet. If you have not worn that old raincoat for 10 years, you're not going to wear it, right?
Well, somebody said if you don't wear something for an entire year.
Well, I'm not with that school. No,
No.
because I go back and pull my stuff out. I call it all vintage.
You're good.
Yeah.
You just have to revive it sometimes.
Vintage is good.
Vintage is good, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't need and we don't need, and my husband and I are gradually clearing because he's a pack rat. And another thing you can do is donate your hair. The wonderful Amy Zhang, who runs the office at Act Today, who, we couldn't operate without her. She has this gorgeous, she's Asian, and she has this gorgeous long dark hair. She will routinely grow it down to here, cut it, and donate it. And they make wigs out of it, and the proceeds go to cancer. So that's a wonderful way. You can grow your hair, cut it, donate it. You can get rid of your clutter, get rid of your clothes, give it to the homeless, give it to the needy, clear out your pantry, give it to the food pantry. Lots of ideas there. And what is this tweet that came in about
Annette Funicello died?
Annette Funicello died, and I remember interviewing her when I did Vicki Lawrence's talk show.
Oh my goodness.
And we went to her home, and I must say she was one of the nicest people I have ever met. So our thoughts and prayers are with Annette's family and all of her loved ones, and she'll always be with us, right?
She's so brave. I mean, she was so brave.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what illness looks like. I'm definitely going to come out.
Yeah. Annette Funicello, we love you. And we're giving our thoughts and prayers to your family.
Absolutely.
So, any other tweets you got there, or call-ins, or
I've got
comments?
some stuff here. I need to scroll down, but I don't want to move too much.
Okay, don't move too much.
Some people just writing in saying, love you, Shannon. We love you, too. So thrilled to have all of you here watching with us as we get down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, you've kind of got a checkerboard color look going on
It
here.
is kind of cool.
You know what?
Different colors. If you turn your head sideways, maybe
turn
they
your
can
head
see.
sideways.
When Lisa Gibbons was here, you ladies were talking about the fact that sometimes you cut and color your own hair.
Right.
Guilty as charged.
Right.
And I'm not good at getting. I think it's resistant on the back too. It's always been a problem, but it's color resistant.
Okay.
It makes me wonder if roots are not harder to get. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what my color is. I lost track of what my actual color is.
My mother started putting summer blonde in my hair when I was 13 because she couldn't bear to see her blonde daughter go dark. So I have no idea. Well, right now it's white, so I have no idea what's under here.
I found my first gray hair at 17. So.
Okay.
And I stopped dyeing my hair when I was pregnant with Jem. My theory was that if we were going to start with old eggs to begin with, that we should have all the other ingredients in the omelet be as fresh as possible.
Okay.
Because I was 40 when we had Jem. And my joke was always that I was going to keep my hair gray until someone called me grandma. And they did that when he was 8 days old. My stomach hadn't even gone down. And I said, Grandma and Grandpa have the baby out.
Yeah. Well,
but I waited 2 years before I started dyeing it. So this will be interesting to see how much whiter it's gotten.
Now, are you going to, as it grows out,
yes,
are you going to let it grow out natural color?
I think for a while.
Yeah.
Let's like see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
It'd be cool.
Could be a good way to make the transition to all gray or all white.
And we'll have to ask Lorenzo when he comes in, who's going to be...
Yes, Lorenzo from the Onyx Hair Salon is going to be joining us in just a little while to take it all the way down, as we said, the full Monty.
Down to the scalp.
Take the fuzz off. And so we can give poor Mark a break.
And does it come back in thicker? I mean, I have all these questions for him. Like, will it come back in still curly, or will it?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of questions for him,
I have had a lot of friends that have gone through chemo and lost their hair, and their hair has come back different.
But I've always wondered if that was from the chemo.
I don't know. I
think it is. I don't think I shave my hair every day, and it doesn't change. My hair.
Where do you shave it?
Well, I didn't shave today. I meant my.
Oh, you mean your beard? Yeah. Because you've got a great. Your hair is kind of your signature look.
Yeah, I don't really want to shave my head today.
No.
I mean, like
it's taken you a long time to get that look, hasn't it?
You know, it's just been refined over time.
Yeah. Do you train it with gel and that kind of thing?
I mean, like, yeah, not gel so much as some sort of product, like either like a paste or like a wax or a not usually wax,
and then you
like,
tip the ends with some color.
I don't do anything. I mean, other than like putting it like this.
Oh, really?
Like, the hair guy does everything else.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a very cool look, Alex. I like it. Very cool.
And you were telling me the other day that he does it in a really funky way, right?
Yeah, he does this weird thing where he like puts my hair into ponytails and like cuts, like, so I have like all these little ponytails in my hair, and he cuts like based on that, and that gives it better texture.
Very cool. Now I'm going to get a haircut tomorrow because I thought I would cut mine a lot shorter. No thanks, Mark. No thanks.
Mark is here. He's got clippers.
No thanks.
Although I think we've just about killed these clippers.
But I am going to get mine shorter, Shannon, just to kind of feel a little more at home with you on Wednesday. So I'm going to chop a lot of this off tomorrow.
Wow.
So, you know, I want to kind of show some solidarity with my girlfriend. But I was saying to Shannon, the last thing my husband said, because he knows me really well, I was walking out of the house and he said, Nancy, and I turned around and he goes, just because Shannon's shaving her head, don't do it. And I said, honey, I'm not going to do it. He goes, yeah, we'll see. Because he knows that I am always one to jump on a bandwagon.
Well, it's very interesting that how many people have said, well, you're not asking me to shave my head, are you? And I've said, no, heavens no. You know, how I heard about Ryan and Ryan's story, it was, I'll be honest with everybody, that we lost my mom to cancer in December of this last year. And it was the same week of the Newtown massacre.
Right.
When we talk about bad week, you know, my mom died and I, you know, you have that moment where you go, okay, this is a bad week. And you don't really vocalize it, but there's that thought about, you know, does it get worse than this? And of course, it can always get worse. And I was reminded of that on that Friday. It was my first day back after my mom's funeral, and Emily told me during a break that she said there's something terrible happening in Connecticut.
Oh my gosh.
And it was in the 24 hours after that I kept describing it and saying, my hands feel empty. I don't know what to do. My hands feel empty. I have no power at this moment. There's nothing I can say. I'd like to do something for someone. And that was when my niece said, just in a completely unrelated story, she was telling me about a young man that she was aware of in her church that was going through brain cancer, a young dad. And she said, you know, at the church they had done a fundraiser and they'd asked who would like to shave their head. And I guess something like 21, 22 young men stepped up and said, we will shave our heads in support for Ryan. And she was commenting on the fact that no women had offered. And that was the moment, there was just something about that I said, really, not a single woman? Because I know a lot of women are very attached to their hair.
Yes.
And I certainly have, you know, I've always been attached to it before, but in that moment it was something I could do.
Right.
I had the power to say, okay, I will shave my head for
That
Ryan.
really spoke to you.
Yeah, you know, and just sometimes something sing, but we're saying to people at home, what sings to you? What cause sings to you? What action sings to you? What talents do you have? What would you like to do for somebody else to show compassion?
Yeah, we have also, we mentioned this as part of another one, feed someone or donate to your local food bank.
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend, and sometimes you see homeless people at certain places, and they may be asking for money. He carries a 6-pack of soups in his car and water. And whenever he encounters a homeless person that says they need food or whatever, he will give them a can of soup and a thing of water, which is a lovely gesture. And that's something you might want to think about. Just have those cans of soup in your car.
Absolutely. What a lovely...
That reminds me, when I lived in New York, I noticed that most of the I didn't have any money at all, but most of the homeless people did not have socks. So I bought like a big pack of tube socks from, the dollar store.
Right.
And I would carry them in my backpack, and I would just give them tube socks. And sometimes they would be really mad that they didn't want the tube socks. They wanted money. On the other hand, I felt like I was doing everything I could. It was what I could afford.
Yeah.
But it was also, I wasn't walking away from them. I wasn't ignoring a need of some kind. So even the littlest thing that you
The littlest things. It's also a great, to be a model for your children. What you can do is you can put together a little piggy bank and have your children collect coins, and also if they do chores at home, you can give them 25 cents for their chores, and then have them donate every so often. When that piggy bank gets full, have them donate that to a charity or a homeless shelter or something. Teach your children well. Teach them the beauty of giving back to the world, because it really does start when they're young. Don't you agree?
I agree, and it's been interesting in our lives with Will's, my son, because he had trouble partying with anything, small or otherwise.
So does Wyatt.
So it was really, so even like a little board book or something, it would say, wow, you're done with that board book. I think we should give it to another child. And he would be so distraught and grief-stricken over that board book. And now he's very good about giving. So what we said was, okay, let's not give things away. Let's give of ourselves. What can we do of ourselves? So he decided that he would take his puppy and let people play with his puppy and talk to them about a golden. That's what he could do.
Wonderful.
But now he's very good at giving. Yeah. But with the autism, it was a real...
We had to work on that in therapy, too, where we would have a donation box, and the therapist would have him take... Because he would not want to part with the runaway bunny.
Oh, of
and
course.
He was, 9 or 10. And, Mommy, I want this book. So that was hard for us, Monica.
Right.
And it's great to teach your children, when they've outgrown clothes, have them pack it up with you, take it to the Salvation Army for the donation. Really good thing to do.
That's right.
Shannon, I have to say you have beautiful eyes, and they show up more with your hair like this.
Can I say, this is a very surreal experience.
I was going to say, how are you?
This is bizarre. I just had that moment of reality where it was like, oh my gosh, I have no hair, and I'm standing around with a bunch of people.
I can't even imagine how you feel, because that's surreal for me, and I still have my hair.
Yeah. But I have like a fur collar on.
And you have beautiful ears. I know that's a weird thing to say, but my ears stick out. Which
I was afraid of that, so good to know.
Gorgeous ears.
You'll get to wear great earrings.
And are you exhausted, Mark? Are you? I can see all the gray that's
I'm telling you, I think
I'm standing here.
You've done a
like
really
work and
good job. You've done a really good job.
You have done a good job.
This is my first time.
That's right. This is not his first dog and pony show. The man has talents.
Yeah.
All right.
It's pretty uniform there.
Woo!
I gotta say,
and Alex,
we're gonna go to break, I think. And you know what? I think we should. Yeah, I think we should shed you.
Yes, we need to
take
shed
the
me.
sweater off.
Don't they have that thing that sucks up all the hair or like blows?
Yeah, I don't know if we have that here. We don't have all the tools.
Was that
Alex, we don't have all the tools.
You know when you go to the barbershop?
It's amazing feeling. Everybody has to feel it.
I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live. And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Dr. Grandin, what is it like for you personally to have become the most celebrated person in the field of autism?
Well, I feel it's a responsibility. I get a lot of emails and letters from young kids. In fact, at the last conference I was at, I got a whole envelope of letters from kids in an English class. What makes me pleased is I think I'm inspiring a lot of kids to succeed, because I want to see kids succeed. Now, one problem I'm seeing with some of the fully verbal kids is they're not getting stretched enough. I see kids coming up to me at conferences where nobody's taught them how to shake hands. See, when I was a young child, I had to be party host at my mother's parties. I had to shake hands, say please and thank you, have table manners, learn how to shop. And I'm seeing too many situations where they aren't learning those basic skills.
Yeah, so you really think they need the basic skills that every child should learn?
Yes. Now, in the 50s, every child was taught social skills in a much more structured way. And today, that's not the case. Now, the so-called normal kids, they pick it up. But the autistic kids have got to be taught. Okay. And that's not being done enough.
What kind of preconceptions, though, do you think most people have about relating to those with ASD?
Autism is a really big spectrum. You're going all the way from Silicon Valley down to somebody with a lot of intellectual challenges. Now, the kinds of services and things a person needs is very different, those two ends of the spectrum. And I go to different places. I go to Silicon Valley, and I see a lot of people that I know are on the spectrum. And then I go see another kid that's smart at math, but nothing's being done to develop his skills, and he's getting addicted to video games. And they are the same kind of kid. The thing that I'm seeing, especially on the mild end of the spectrum, is too many kids sort of becoming the label. I'm very concerned about them getting a handicap mentality. Then I go over to the meatpacking plant, and there's a whole maintenance shop of old hippies that I know are on the spectrum, and they run that maintenance shop. And they've been there for years and years and years.
Why do you think the numbers, 1 in 68 now, have risen so dramatically?
I think on the mild end of the spectrum, it's increased detection. Because I can think of kids I went to elementary school with, kids I went to college with, that today would be diagnosed on the spectrum. I think that's a big part of it on the mild end of the spectrum. Now, I think there also is some severe autism that may have actually increased because there's more environmental contaminants, and there's more medications being given during early pregnancy.
Dr. Grandin, you beg parents not to let their children with autism be defined by the DSM or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Why?
Well, I think the DSM made a big mistake removing Asperger's syndrome, because under the DMS-4, autism you had to have speech delay, Asperger was no speech delay. Now, you could argue scientific reasons for taking out the speech delay stuff, but from a service provider standpoint, you know, the kind of services that somebody's nonverbal has is different than a mild kid with Asperger's. And I'm seeing too many fully verbal kids, less severe than me, getting put into a class with nonverbal kids. I'm seeing too many smart kids not learning job skills. That's another thing that I really push. Because when I was 13, my mother had got me in a sewing job. When I was 15, I was cleaning horse stalls. It's really important that students intern in a job before they graduate from high school. They got to learn that discipline of getting to work.
If you could speak to every business owner in America, what would you say to convince them to hire somebody on the autism spectrum?
Well, there's certain things they can do extremely well. In fact, the SAP Corporation is hiring people with autism. There's another Project Search, where there's work being done with collaborating with hospitals to train them to set up surgical instruments for different types of surgery. And they take longer to train, but once they're trained, they're super, super good and meticulous about making sure the instruments are set up right. And that's got about a 78% employment rate.
So you think the skills that those with ASD have to offer are often overlooked by people that employ?
As I said before, I can think of kids that I went to college with that definitely were on the autism spectrum. Those individuals are all employed in good jobs. And I think a lot of this gets back to pounding those manners in the 50s and the 60s, and kids being on things like paper routes, where they learned work skills.
Why do you think the experts in the field of ASDs focus so intensely on the deficits and not on the strengths of autism?
Well, we need to be building up strengths. My ability in art was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. If you got a third grader that's good at math, and he can do a high school math book, let him do the high school math book. Don't hold them back.
I want to know why you think that so little attention has been paid to the sensory processing issues. What can we learn from those?
Well, I just heard about a brand new study that's been done up at in California, Dr. Wu, and they took children aged 4 through 12 that had speech delay, and they stayed in their regular programs, ABA or whatever the speech therapy the school was doing, and then they got an hour a day of sensory therapy where they did a lot of variety of stimulation, like walk on different kinds of flooring, smell different smells, do different activities in a mirror, big variety, always doing more than one sensory thing at a time. And it was done as a controlled experiment, where half the kids just got the regular treatment and the other half got this added sensory treatment. and they got some really big, significant improvements. And they made the point of using all very inexpensive things that would be in any house.
There's so much division in the autism community. How do you think we can all come together and find a common ground?
I think that merging Asperger's together with autism has made all of this worse, because you have a segment of very, very severely handicapped kids where they're never going to be able to live independently. That's a very different kind of situation than a mild Asperger's type of kid. You see, you're putting too many apples and oranges together. Every other diagnosis, like dyslexia, learning problems, ADHD, you've got a fully verbal kid. Only in autism, right now, are you getting a range going from, smart computer geek down to somebody who has very, very severe challenges. Now, I think the American Psychiatric Association originally figured the Asperger kids would get into this social communication category. That's not what's happening. Nobody's going into that because there's no funding for it.
As the most admired person in this field, and we are literally becoming an autism nation, what do you think the most important thing is for us to be aware of?
Well, there's a point where personality variants are just normal variation. I think a brain can be made more cognitive and thinking, or a brain can be made more social. Now, at what point does that become abnormal? There's no black and white dividing line. I'm getting concerned that what we're saying is abnormal is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, a child that has severe speech delay, that's an abnormality. But when you take the kids that are just kind of socially awkward, a lot of those kids are really smart. And then you got the person that's a total social butterfly. And let's think back to the caveman days. I don't think the social yak-yaks around the campfire made the first stone spear.
Dr. Grandin, thank you for inspiring all of us as parents and children.
Talk to us a little bit about what your degree is in.
City planning or urban planning.
I got it from Cal State Northridge with a degree in cinema and television arts with an emphasis in screenwriting.
And what are you interested in, Eli?
A video game internship.
Computer programming.
I'm hoping to combine entertainment and travel, my two passions.
Ooh. What kind of jobs have you worked?
Bakery inventory.
Okay, inventory.
Talk about your volunteer job.
I was going to help the soldiers.
You volunteered to help the soldiers?
Yes.
I interned in the national parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is very urban area. So I worked with the problems of how it's impacting the surrounding community, like the flow of traffic and the flow of people and what they could do to plan in the parking.
I've been to China. I've been all around Europe. I've been to Thailand, Japan, Australia.
You can create an app? That's impressive. Really cool thing. Can you teach other people how to make an app? If you have a choice between working or not working,
working.
You like working?
Yes.
Why? What do you like about working?
It is fun.
I would work.
Yeah? You would choose work? Why?
Because I want to get paid and enjoy it, and want to make sure I have enough money so I can save it.
Why do you need to have a full-time job? I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing, right?
No, obviously, so I can support myself
right.
and hopefully a family down the line, but at least at first, myself.
I'm very dependable and always reliable and get to my job on time.
What excites you about working a job or being an intern?
Learning new skills.
Yeah. What has it meant to you having this job and having the stability of a job that you've had for multiple years?
It's meant the world because I'm able to do almost everything I wanted to do because of that job.
My name is Nancy Allspaw Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of Act Today,
and I'm here to support this amazing cause for military families with children with autism. Most military families move on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent who's deployed. With 1 in 68 military children being diagnosed with autism, it's just more critical than ever that we give them the support they need for care and services. This is the 8th year of our run. It's always a great event for the San Diego community, the fitness community, and the military community to come out and support military children with autism.
So nice to see so many people out here this morning, not only providing their support morally and emotionally for these families, but financially. And so they're raising a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars. It all goes to treatment and some of the things that these families may not otherwise be able to afford. And so we're just proud to be a part of it.
There's a children's race as well, and it's all kinds of fun too that's mixed up in it all.
This is our 8th year being the title sponsor of the One Hope Act Today Family 5K, 10K Family Festival. And we believe doing good is doing good business. The main thing that we're out here today is because of our Cabernet supports Act Today. And with our Cabernet, we donate back towards Act Today, and we've donated over 2,000 hours of ABA therapy.
Me and Gunny Gitmo came all the way out here from Palm Springs to support this because we do have a son that has autism. And so we come out here to do the support for it all the time. We do a lot of fundraisers out in Palm Springs also.
We had a huge Stroller Warriors group out here. I run with Stroller Warriors Miramar. We had a bunch of ladies run their first ever 10K today. It was amazing. I have a personal connection to autism. My son Ethan has autism.
I'm in the Navy, and I ran the inaugural Act Today 5K back in 2011, I think it was. And so every time I come back to San Diego, I try and make it around this time so I can come run this race.
I'm a 14-year military spouse who has been through 4 deployments with my husband. He's running today right now, so I'm just very happy to be here. Anytime an organization is out here helping military families, I'm always here to support because they're here to help families like me.
Love is a battlefield. Autism and PTSD for parents. It's a thing. I'm here to tell you it's survivable. What you need to do is remember, this is not for the faint of heart. There's actually a study that was done on mothers of children with autism, and it said, oh, this is very similar to PTSD among soldiers. And we're like, we needed a study for that. We already knew this. However, you got to remember that stress is very important, not only because it's just stress that we're all dealing with, part of the modern day life. It can have serious effects. Not only does it affect your child, your spouse, other members of your family, it also affects your health. The stress is linked to immune system conditions, which can be creating conditions like risk for cancer, heart attack, stroke, anxiety, social isolation, which also depresses your immune system further, and even, girls, listen to this, hair loss. How do we handle this kind of chronic battlefield condition? Well, we have to do what generals do. We get the troops together, we demand support, we push for what we need. So when you go into your meeting with the schools, be sure and you have people with you, because it can be very difficult if you don't have someone with you to help you. Get letters from the doctors, get your evaluations, do what you need to do to get what you can for your child, because that ends up making your stress less. Over the years, as you deal with this kind of stress, remember, it can be your friend because it can tell you things need to change. It can also be your enemy because it can create a lot of bad conditions. The moral of the story is, don't be too strong for too long.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Today is a red letter day because I have here in the studio with me one of my favorite people on the face of the planet. He just also happens to be an autism expert. I don't think it's a just also. I think that's part and parcel of why you're one of my favorite people on the planet. This is Peter Farrig, and you have heard Peter Farrig on this show absolutely every day that you've listened, because he does the voiceover at the beginning, our little disclaimer. That is his voice. And part of the reason why we wanted it to be his voice is because, see, I'm going to get emotional already. Peter was the very first therapist that ever came to our door. And he is someone that I just have infinite respect for. I refer to him as our personal autism whisperer. Whenever a family welcomes therapists into their life, there is always at least one therapist that you meet along the way who changes your life. And Peter is that therapist for us. He, oh my gosh. Now, and we're going to talk later on about how we get attached to therapists, but, you know, I'm very fond of saying to people, if Peter ever needs a kidney, I'm just going to lift up my shirt and say, which one, Peter? Which one do you want? You can have both of them, because he was that pivotal on our case, and he's, you know, you're just one of the good guys, and you've been working in this field forever. And it's been amazing to me to see how, I mean, the first time you came in my home, you were an expert already, and you were a brilliant expert, but, you know, more than a decade has passed since then, and you've been all over the world doing autism. We're going to get into all that. But it's Peter Farrig, you guys. This is so exciting. We don't get to have him in the studio. And so we're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to start with questions that you guys have written in the last week. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready. Yeah.
So the first question, how do I teach my child yes and no mans without using foods? He rejects many foods, and we don't want to make things worse. Also, how can I avoid confusion between yes and no? He's 3, already vocal, but delayed in all areas of VB and not conversational yet. Thanks a lot. VB, verbal behavior. Okay.
Right.
I love it when our audience knows more about the initials and things than I necessarily do. Okay. Peter, and I didn't say that Peter is a CARD supervisor. He has a caseload of many kiddos that he helps to design their programs. That's what his role at CARD is now. So, Peter, how do we help teach a child yes and no mans without using foods?
Yeah, yes and no is really tricky, especially if you're not using foods. Oftentimes we do have clients that will confuse those two, or they'll say yes for everything. And you know, some things we've tried is using foods we know they don't like. So obviously that's the go-to, because we know if they say no, and we give it to them, they're not going to want it. So that's one way. That's kind of the real experiential, kind of, we call it the experiential problem. I'm experiencing what happens when I say yes and I get something that I don't want.
Right.
So without food, it's a little tricky. I think just like anything else, kind of need to do a preference assessment and check the things that we know the child really is motivated by, or just likes to interact with, or activities they like to engage in, and start using those things. And then, unfortunately, if you're not using food, then you kind of maybe some sort of quote-unquote academic task. We know that they're not as motivated to engage in that task, or a toy that they just don't like. It can be really tricky because you don't want to use items that might scare them. You don't want to use items that you want them to interact with. So you wouldn't present like a math worksheet and say, do you want to do math? They're going to say no. And then you're teaching that behavior when they get into school. You know, teacher says, everyone get out your math books. You don't want your kid to be the one to say no up in the classroom. So, but it does get a little tricky. Like I said, I think just looking at maybe selecting a group of items and just, these are the items we're going to use for the yes no program. This is something that I know he wants. I know she wants. I know they don't want this thing. It can be as simple as, you know, some kids just, they see Legos and they're like, gosh, I don't know what to do with that thing. So you could present a Lego. Do you want to play with Legos? The other thing too would be maybe have something like in comparison that you know they really like close by. So maybe if they reach for that, then you can immediately prompt, okay, so if I ask you for this, say no. The key is going to be utilizing what we call errorless learning. Don't give them an opportunity to make a mistake. That's the most important thing. So get the items you know they like versus the ones they don't like, and just utilize that errorless learning. I would focus on one at a time. I wouldn't teach yes and no at the same time. If they overuse yes, obviously you want to focus on no. But that's what I would do, is focus on one response at a time. You'd utilize something that is very non-preferred without being aversive and just present it. You know, do you want the Lego? Say no, and repeat those trials until you can start fading out that vocal prompt. You can fade it to a partial vocal. Do you want, say, you know, give like the little N sound. If he can read sight words, they said 3 years old, so maybe not, but you can also use cue cards, so red for no, green for yes, and use those to pair them with the prompt. So you can take the vocal prompt out of it and then, you know, start presenting the items you know they don't like in we can call it the no bin, and it has the red card on it. Okay. The key is kind of trial and error with some of these things, because we never really know how a child is going to respond until you start trying different methods. But the key is making sure they don't have an opportunity to make an error, and teach one at a time.
Okay, it seems like to me, because you guys understand this much more than we do as parents, but MANS, the whole idea is that by saying it, you get the thing that you want.
Right.
So teaching no means that it has to be great for them that the thing goes away, but as you said, can't be aversive, can't be traumatic, it can't be, because we're not torturing kids.
Right.
But so something that they feel strongly enough about that it's going, that the no will be like, yay, I got my way.
Yeah.
But not so bad that we've scared them.
Right, exactly.
And obviously the yes has to be reinforcing when they get it.
Right.
Because it's something that they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and if they say yes for something you know they don't want, you have to give it to them. They have to understand that, especially with verbal behavior, I say something, I get it.
Yeah. My behavior has a consequence. And when I say yes, the consequence is that I get it.
Right.
When I say no, the consequence is that I don't get it. And sometimes that's the preferable choice.
Right.
Okay, so it's hard with the food thing. You know, because you were in my house and I was adamant about not wanting food as a reinforcer because, you know, clearly I have food issues. It's not like I'm pretending I don't, right? And a lot of people in my family, I'm not speaking for anybody else, may or may not have food issues as well. And I didn't want to create a child who had a food issue thing.
Right.
So I didn't want food at all. Now, I relented a little bit because Peter and other people on the team explained to me that food is a primary reinforcer, which means it's like a reinforcer on steroids. It just works. It's immediate. It's a deeply pleasurable thing or deeply lit thing if it isn't something you like. So it does make it easier. I so hear this idea of the fact that he rejects many foods and that you don't want to make it worse. But in actuality, like taking a food that he rejects, could that not be something that would be useful for teaching no?
Yes. I think, you know, we get kind of caught up in feeding, and we think, well, they need to eat every food and they need to try this and they need to at least try every food. But really, how many of us will eat anything that's put in front of us?
Right.
You know, and I think sometimes we need to remember, it's still a child. You know, they're not defined by their diagnosis.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can't just... I didn't like Brussels sprouts when I was a kid, so I'm not going to teach a child to eat Brussels sprouts. So maybe Brussels sprouts is something you can use to do no. Foods that you know, at this age, they're not going to want. Avocado, sometimes kids don't like those things. The danger with a child that does kind of have food selectivity, and, you know, obviously we don't know the ins and outs of this case and don't know what the child is eating, you could create more rigidity. Okay. So if you use it for the yes-no program, it could cause problems. However, as you know, and you know, we had that conversation 12 years ago, 10 years ago, food is a fast-acting reinforcer. I mean, in a way to get a behavior, I like to call it jump started.
Right.
Food is kind of the way to go for a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
And you can get tricky about it. We got gummy bears that we cut up in 8s and giving them a little piece.
Right.
And that's enough to kind of get that momentum going. And then the key is remembering we have to fade out the food as a reinforcer. That's when you start pairing it with a token system or a point system or social praise. But I can go on for hours about that. So
I think what's important to note, though, for us as parents, we feel like if I say yes to this, this is what our whole lives will look like forever. And that teaching yes, no, once you really find the thing that's reinforcing and not reinforcing, this is probably going to be like, what, a week and a half of your life, and then you're going to move on to another thing. And the using food does not have to be, it's like, as you said, you're fading it out. So it's a blip on the radar, but he will be able to use yes and no for the rest of his life. Right. So, even though I'm with you on the food thing, didn't care for it, used it minimally, sometimes it can be really, really helpful. And while I love Brussels sprouts, so I'm offended that you malign Brussels sprouts.
I love them now.
Right. But, offering Brussels sprouts to a 3-year-old and can be very effective for teaching them no, and it won't harm them long term. You still probably, when they're 13 or 23, can get them to eat Brussels sprouts when you mix prosciutto in with it, right?
Right.
So there are ways for everything. So I just wanted to bring up that point. It's not the rest of your life. Okay, fabulous. Write to us and let us know if you need more information than that. Now, moving on to the next question. Good morning. My 9-year-old son has high-functioning ASD. He has a watch set to remind him every 2 hours to go to the bathroom, since he doesn't seem to recognize when he needs to go. Sometimes he responds to the vibrating, but I've noticed other times he ignores it, usually when he's playing video games. How well do I know this routine? Then I have to tell him to go. He also pushes the buttons and resets the time. He still isn't consistent with nighttime bladder control, but has woken up dry 5 days in a row last week, and thank you for all your help. Okay, where do we want to start?
Okay, a lot going on here.
Yeah, a lot.
So potty training can be the most challenging thing. If he's trained and it's a distraction, then we need to look at, this is not a skill deficit, maybe it's a performance problem. Now, if it's a performance problem and he's motivated by those video games, I would set up a reward system. I would set up some kind of reward system where, 80% of the times that we start there, the vibration goes off, he gets a video game token. And as long as he gets the allotted amount of tokens within whatever amount of time you kind of predetermine, then he can access those video games. You want to use the environment and use the motivators, use the things that maybe are restricting him or preventing him from going to the bathroom because he's so distracted as that reward. Look, video games, I myself am going to be 38 very soon. I still play video games. It's easy to kind of get into that, like, oh, you get caught in it, and before you know it, it's 2 hours, and you go, okay, I've wasted 2 hours that I'll never get back. It's easy to look at that as an adult, but for a child, for a teenager, they don't care about anything else. It's, it's about beating that level. It's about beating that boss. So it might be that he's feeling the physical cue, that, the private event that we call it, and just not acting on it because he wants to get to the next level. So you kind of want to flip it on him and say, well, we need to see you're a big boy now, you're growing up, you're so smart, you play video games really well, but you can't just have free access if you are not following your, I'm guessing it's probably just like a vibrating beeper watch, okay? If you listen to that or respond to it and don't reset the time, you'll get a token. Now, it's really important that you kind of set up a time for this. So, in the next 4 hours, because if he's going every 2 hours, maybe 2 successes, and then he can access the video games. If he has an accident, maybe there's a penalty for the amount of time he can spend on the video games. The key here is going to be reinforcement. What is the most powerful reinforcer? Because it sounds like it's not necessarily skill deficit, and he is waking up dry, but just getting distracted or ignoring it altogether. It could also be that when it goes off, he feels it vibrate, but he's not feeling like I really need to go, and then he kind of resets it and waits and then has an accident. The key is teaching him it doesn't matter what you actually feel inside, is you need to follow this for now until that stimulus basically gets paired with that private event, and making sure we have a powerful motivator.
So for me, the hardest part about this is, and believe me, I have a 15-year-old who right now is in the other room playing a video game. So I know what this is like, right? But the hardest part is going to be that you have a routine right now where your child plays video games, right? And now we have to change up that routine a little bit, because having free access to the video games will make it meaningless if he gets the token giving him video game time. So, you have to sort of, every time you guys did this with me, what I would have to do is set up a circumstance in which we would just like be very busy. Like maybe we would, take a couple of day trips, we'd go to museums or something where there's a break in what the routine has been, and now we come back and the first thing he does is go to the video game, and I go, okay, well, in order to get the video game, but he's been weaned off of it a little. In order to get the video game, you have to get this many tokens, and when you're dry for this many time and go to the bathroom, but I think it's just too hard to just suddenly, it's Monday morning and go, okay, today we're just going to do it differently, and you don't get your video game unless you're dry, because then you get behavior, and none of us want to sign up for that.
Right, absolutely. And it's, right now kids are on summer break, so they probably have a lot more time. I had my cousin tell me the other day, oh yeah, I play like 6 hours a day, and I just thought, your brain, what's happening to your brain? But really, it's going to be, and you bring up a great point, by doing those things, you're keeping them busy, but you're also creating that state of deprivation, which we know deprivation is the motivation for doing anything. So that keeping them busy with school starting up, in the next couple of weeks, depending on where you are, that environment is automatically already changing. And I don't know how the school works with you, but if you can set this up at the school, where he, gets the tokens at school, and then when he gets home, he can have the video game time.
Right.
So it's that state of deprivation is occurring while he's at school when it would naturally occur.
Right.
But the tokens are being delivered. So as soon as he gets home, if he got the tokens and didn't have any accidents, then he can play the video games for.
It's like a glass half full, half empty kind of thing. What we want to do is set up the circumstance where they're thinking of it in terms of, oh, if I do this, I get this. Right. Not if I don't do this, I don't get it. Really, you want to, and that's a very fine line, right? But we want to set that up so that it feels like this is easy. Mm-hmm. As long as I do this, I get what I want.
Right. We are we're living in times where it's all about punishment. It's all about do this or else. If you don't do this, you're going to lose out on this. And, there is a lot of research pointing to how punishment just doesn't have the long-term effects that reinforcement does. I don't want to get all like soapboxy and say we need to spread love and be positive just in our general lives. But honestly, in the last couple of years, I've kind of come to that realization is we just need to be positive people, and we need to kind of start flipping things more on the do this and you'll get this.
Exactly.
Do this thing and you'll have access to this thing.
But parents, it's possible the kid will look at it the other way, but you, as a parent, you've got to flip that on its ear and get him motivated.
Right. It's just about creating that motivation and being positive and saying, so proud of everything you're doing. You've reached all these accomplishments. This isn't a rule because we're trying to punish you. It's just the next phase in your growth. It's the next step for you. You want to spin it. You want to make it so you're almost empowering them. You're encouraging them and making them feel like, hey, I can do this. Yeah, sure. That's awesome. And you'll see, and sometimes sometimes our kids surprise us and they just get motivated by the challenge. And you just, okay, well, I didn't expect that, but he's sitting down and doing math homework because it's hard and he wants to do it. So,
right. Yep. It does happen. I've seen that. Yep. But take my advice. Don't start cold turkey. Go do something for 3 days to distract so that you can start anew. Right. Okay, moving on to the next question. Hi, I'm a new BCBA, and I'm struggling with joint attention with my new client that has a lot of self-stimulatory behaviors. I only have 1 hour a week with him, and even though I have sanitized the environment and I bring in new novel toys with me every week, he's happy making noises and walking back and forth in a room and does not sit with me. I know you will know how to help me, and I love the show. show. We love you back. So Peter, talk to us about when you want to work on joint attention with a kiddo who's doing all that self-stimulatory behavior.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to help. Sometimes the answers aren't exactly what we want.
Right.
In this case, I don't know that would actually work on joint attention because of the self-stimulatory behavior. The self-stimulatory behavior, really, you kind of need to have better control of that. As some of my fellow supervisors and I, we always talk about, I will deal with aggression, I will deal with tantrums, I'll deal with vomit, I'll deal with poop, I don't care. Self-stimulatory behavior can be one of the most challenging things because it does really interfere with their development and their opportunities to learn.
And it's hard to compete with.
It's very hard to compete with. You need something very powerful, some super strong motivator to even, get them to be motivated to do it. But even then, I've had clients where it's just, there's nothing more reinforcing this self-stimulatory behavior. So teaching a skill like joint attention may not be the best course of action right now. I would probably start with just focusing on maybe simple eye contact. Maybe just look at I wouldn't focus on having them look at an item, but just try getting them to look in your eyes. Maybe using, we've done anything from like a lollipop coming up to our eyes to I've done the googly glasses, and then you start fading those. Kids that like superheroes, they have those sunglasses that have like the Batman cowl and the Superman coif or whatever it is. You can get creative in that stuff just to try and work on the eye contact. The other challenge here is if you're only with him an hour a week, it's going to be really tricky to compete with the stereotypy. If, depending on the rates, if he's engaging in visual stereotypy 10 times an hour, 1 hour a week is going to make it a lot more challenging. So I'm not sure if it's just that you have an hour a week with him and you're supervising a team that sees him. But, I don't know if this person can get in touch with you again and maybe give us some more information and kind of guide them in that direction. But congratulations on being a new BCBA. I would definitely try and focus on the eye contact first. And focus on managing that self-stimulatory behavior.
And I just want to say one of the reasons why Peter got buy-in from us so early and why I still to this day just think he's so amazing is that creativity piece. Time and time again, when we would hit a wall and we couldn't figure out what to do to get Jem to the next thing, Peter would come up with these things, like just crazy. It was like your brain would just cycle through, all right, how are we going to do this? And I mean, I always tell the story on the show about how you came in and you would spend the first 5 minutes of every session. Do you remember this? You probably don't. Tearing paper swords. Because Jem was into pirates and Peter Pan. It was his favorite thing, was pirates and Peter Pan. So Peter would tear the swords and he would tear them by hand so that nobody would get a paper cut. But then he would have a sword and he would hand the sword to Jem, and then they would start sword fighting, and Peter would at some point freeze. And Jem would just be like, what happened? What button did I push to get him to freeze? And he would keep doing it, trying anything he could do to get Peter to turn back on. And Peter would wait until Jem's eyes would cross his, even for a second. And that would be the start button. And Peter would start. And I really think that it was one of the most creative things ever I've seen in my life, because eventually, and I remember in the beginning thinking, he's never going to get that. He's not going to put the two together. But you know what? He did, and faster than I thought. And which led to some really nice eye contact. It wasn't the end of us working on eye contact by any stretch of the imagination, but it built rapport. He honestly just thought the sun rose and set in you. And I always tell about how when he began to know the schedule, we had other therapists on the team, but he couldn't tell you what day it was or what time it was, but he knew when Peter was coming. Like he had sort of memorized, okay, this is when, and so there would be the knock at the door, and he would just like on his tiptoes run over to the door and he'd be like, Peter, Peter, Peter. He'd be so excited. And I always say to parents, you got to have at least one person on the team that your kid is reacting that way to, that makes it so fun because you will get more progress. It should be that.
It has to be. That's the key. It's easy to kind of get into this, I'm going to sit down and do the DTT and hand them a chip.
Right.
But that is that very robotic kind of DTT, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's to teach
it
that.
Works, but you've got to have more.
You have to start somewhere, and I'm sure you told the story with Jem. We didn't do a lesson with him for the first, I don't remember how long, maybe a little too long, but
it was almost 3 months.
Yeah,
it
was
almost
a while.
Killed me.
We were just working on building that rapport, and getting that compliance and just making him feel like these people are fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where you need to start, is just like, okay, I know that my child needs to learn this, and this, but right now they're just throwing a tantrum anytime the therapist comes over. So it's just about how can I make myself somewhat reinforcing to the child.
And I have to say, I just came back from being on a trip with Jem and meeting so many parents, and one of the questions that parents seem to want to talk a lot about is, what are the hallmarks of quality ABA? Like, what are the things that you should look for? And there are things that I always bring up, and I always say, if your team isn't planning for generalization, that's the first big flag. If you say to your team, they talk about a lesson that they want to teach your child, and you say, okay, how are we planning for generalization? And if they don't have an immediate response back with, oh, well, how we're doing this is this, this, and this. I mean immediate. If they go generalization, with this, or if they go, what do you mean by that? I don't care. Any hesitation whatsoever, you're not at the right place, right?
Yeah, I mean, generalization is key, and it can be tricky. So there are certain children that just cannot generalize right away. But there should always be a plan for it.
Always
there should
have a
never
plan.
be, in my grad school program, they said we never hope for an outcome. We never just wait and hope. You can't wait and hope. If you teach a skill at a table, it's going to be learned at the table, which is fine, but then you need to move it to the environment. How is this, if you're teaching colors at a table, it's very easy to generalize that. So what's the plan for generalization? Moving next into, understanding that sometimes apples are red, sometimes they're green.
Yeah.
It's so important that we do have that built in.
But the other thing for me that really is a hallmark of a quality ABA program is if they have to be talking about how they're making it reinforcing for the kid. And you have to see evidence of that. If you're not seeing that, I don't even think it's ABA, let alone quality ABA. And what I saw early on, don't get me wrong, there were times when Jem tantrumed, there were times when he got frustrated, there were times when he cried. But those times were so few and far between the times when overwhelmingly he was having the time of his life. He had a really good childhood, even though a lot of it was based on catching him up. He was having a good time. And Peter made sure of that. I mean, and I don't want to make it sound like the rest of our therapists didn't either, but Peter was particularly good at it, and you were particularly good at cracking a code. I was going to take a break, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to continue on. Because you are creative, and you're passionate about it, and those are the things that you're looking for in good therapists. And I do want to say this, that we had so much faith in Peter that, of course, I didn't want him to leave. He was with us those first 3 months and working on rapport, and because I remember saying early on, I would watch videos online of a kid doing ABA, and they would have the kid sitting at the table, and they would put something in front of them. I always say that, they do the touch car, right? And I just want to throw up whenever I hear touch car, right? And the kid would be sitting at the table, and they would touch car, and everybody would go, yay, it's so great. And I would go, yeah, if my kid would sit at the table to begin with and follow a command, I wouldn't need ABA, right? I was like, how'd you get him to the table, folks? If you don't tell me that, then you're not telling me how to do this, right? But then Peter and a team of other therapists came in, and Peter's doing sword fights with him, and I was like, what the what? But you had him.
Yeah.
He enjoyed you. You were like a big toy for him, And he so enjoyed it when you came and wanted to do things for you. So that by the time the table came, the table was delivered. It was a therapy table, and Peter helped us put it together.
Yes,
But the time he flipped it and put it over, and we had a little yellow therapy chair. I sold that thing at a garage sale. I'm never so happy to see something go at a garage sale, that little yellow therapy chair. But you pulled it up to the table and you went like this, and Jem couldn't wait to sit in that chair.
Yeah, it's anticipatory. He's looking for what's going to come next. That's the key. And, I try and tell my therapists as well on my teams, like, you got to be fun. You got to remember what it was like to be a kid. You have to come in with that energy. I'm really, really lucky to have worked for CARD for as many years as I have, and just having some of the mentors who've been on your show. Sabrina, who supervised the case, she was amazing, and just the way they explained why it's important to be motivating, why it's important to be fun. It was a little bit easier for me because I had that background of theater and acting and performing and creativity, but just having that mentorship. Sue Cho is another one who I know. It's just, there are so many people. I'm not going to go off and name everyone, but a lot of the people you've had on this show, I was lucky enough to have as mentors that gave you that. Hey, imagine if you were a kid and some stranger just came into your house and told you to sit at a table and do some work.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it. But if this person came in and was like, this is my buddy, this is my friend, we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I have to say that, so we had that rapport with you. You got him to sit at the table, and I think it was like right around on that day that you said, by the way, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm going away to work in another CARD office at a great distance. And I was like, what? How can you, and it was personal to me. It was like, how can you leave us? And this is going to happen on every single parent, guardian that has a child that's in ABA. I just want you to know that this is going to happen to you. And I had even been semi-prepared by a family who had told me, this will happen, and it was still devastating to me. I cried. I think I held it together slightly while you were there, but I cried for days afterwards, and I was like, what will become of us? Woe is me, the kindness of strangers kind of thing. I was just like full on, going there. But my message to parents always is that when you have a great therapist, celebrate that. When they go away, know that it isn't the end. That there was a day when I did not know this man, and he came and he helped us. And you helped me to realize that too. You said there are going to be others that come behind me, and they will have something important to bring in on this case as well. And this is just the beginning. And that was good for me to hear. I was too busy like, why are you leaving us? But we did. We had more people come in on the case, and they did things based on what you had done, the rapport that you had created, and they were able to get a lot done. A year later, Peter's back, right? And Peter came back on our case, and I was thrilled. And Jem had progressed to another place at that time.
Yeah.
He had grown a great deal, and it was fun to have you come back on the case and see how much he had done. But that rapport between the two of you still there.
Yeah.
And you spent quite a bit of time with us then, and then Peter's like, hello, I'm leaving again, and this time going to Dubai.
Yeah.
And I was like, how could you do this to us, Peter? But I do recall at that point saying, yes, of course, that's the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was. You
Right.
thought I was going to lay down in front of the plane, but I didn't because I knew it was the right thing for Peter.
Yeah.
I knew there were children in Dubai who needed him. And I knew that there would be people who would come onto our case after Peter. And by that point, I understood generalization because Peter said to me, this isn't... when I came on this case, you told me you wanted to remove the obstacles from this kiddo, and you did not say, I just want him to be able to respond to you, Peter. So this is why this is important.
Yeah. And, when I came back, that over-the-top energy wasn't the same. I wasn't doing that because that also needs to be faded out. I still, obviously when he met milestones and he accomplished something that was difficult, then it was a huge party. But at this point, he's a year older. He's gotten a lot of that reinforcement. His program had progressed tremendously in a year. I remember the first time I opened that logbook when we had logbooks, and I just thought, he learned this in a year.
Yeah,
he just took off, and it was really fantastic. But it was that, okay, I need to fade my level of reinforcement. I have that buy-in with him, and he knows that it's coming, and we know things that maintain behavior. One of the things that maintains behavior the most is intermittent reinforcement.
Right.
So, it's why people go and, hit the casinos.
Exactly.
That payoff isn't always there, but when it's there, it's so motivating.
Yeah.
So it was almost like that little kid again, waiting for me to freeze and play swords again. He was always looking for, when is that big party going to come again? And it would come, but it was at, intermittent levels. And he had many therapists on his team that he generalized with and started responding to multiple people. And it was like, you kind of look at him at that point and go, all right, we got something going here. We got something going here. It was so awesome to see. Yeah.
But Peter has cycled back on our case many times. And when we hit a little bit, after he was done at CARD, totally done at CARD, we hit a little skid again where I was having an issue at school and I couldn't quite crack it. And I asked for CARD to send in some eyes because we had some CARD consultation on the IEP. And I asked, and they said, hey, Peter is available. And they wanted 2 different people for 2 different opinions. And so they sent another therapist that we had on the case for a long time. And she went in and watched for a week, and Peter came in and watched for a week. And the difference between the two, what the 2 of you said, was so vastly different, because the other person was very professional and said, well, what I'm seeing is this, and basically I think he's bored and I think you need to challenge him more. And Peter, because we have such a rapport, you stood on the curb with me and said, when did you give up? And I was like, what? And I don't know that there's anybody else who could have said that to me but you. But you called me on it and said, when did you get all comfortable? Why did you stop pushing? When, and I can't thank you enough for saying that then, for having the courage to say that to me as a parent. Because, and you said to me, look, he's fine. He's great. And if this is all you want, fabulous. But that wasn't what you said to me on day one, and tell me if you've changed your mind. And I said, what? No, I want him to continue making progress. And that really, but see, he had graduated from CARD, so I was like, oh, well, hands off, we're done. And you let me know that wasn't the case.
Yeah. No, it definitely can't end. And, we were definitely in a much better place.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was easy for me to tell you, hey, you can't give up. You can't stop implementing these things that worked for so long, because once you do, it's like any teenager. It's like any child. It's like any human being. If the expectations are less, the effort will be less. So it's really important. And it was great that I knew I could tell you that and you would jump right on it.
And I know that our audience will understand too that it was just almost a year after my mom had died too. And so there were a lot of things that I was like, about. And it sort of woke me up and realized that, I had let things go. We get tired and stuff happens and we get tired, but that it's important to not let loose of those threads of what motivated us to do this to begin with. And because of that, I think my kid is that much happier. And the things that we get to talk about now that I don't think we would have if it hadn't been for you so many different times at so many points along the way. So now I want to talk a little bit about, and I want to show a video. We find ourselves, 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago?
2 or 3, yeah, something like that, yeah.
There was a retreat. From time to time, CARD does a retreat, and they're all usually different. But we went to this, hundreds of us went to this place right in Malibu by the water, and they have cabins, but they also have these courses, high wire courses. And Peter and I don't know what they were thinking, but they put the 2 of us on the same team with 20 other people, right? But we would come up to these challenges and have to decide if we were going to do them. The first one was the rock climbing wall. And you did that, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not participating in this activity. Wasn't doing it. And then I was like, I'll cheer everybody else on, but my fat patootie is not going up the rock climbing wall. Let's be clear about this, right? And so then we went from there to the high wire stuff. And I just sort of jokingly, they had us get into these harnesses just in case we were going to do it. And I was like, I get car sick on a stationary bicycle. I'm terrified of heights. I have no agility whatsoever. And I have no coordination. I'm not walking. I'm not standing on a telephone pole and jumping off and counting on a bunch of people being the counterweight for, again, my fat patootie. But I had my harness on and I was like, so Peter, which one of these things are we doing? And it was just sort of a joke. I didn't even mean it. But you were like, what? Really? Are we doing one? All right, well, maybe we should do this one. And I was like, what? Are you taking this? Like, I didn't. And then I couldn't back out. I think you thought I was serious. And then I thought he was serious. So I was like, oh, apparently we got to do this now. And we were looking at one that was a little bit easier. And I said something to you like, maybe we should do that one. It's easier. And you said, you looked at me and you were like, what? We've never taken the easy way, Shannon. We didn't do that with Jem. Why would we do that now? What's the hardest one here? And before I knew it, we were up on this wire. So we should show this tape, and then I want to tell what happened afterwards, because I think what happened afterwards was even cooler. So Samantha, show the tape.
Peter, you're doing awesome, man. Good job, Mama Bear. Yeah, there you go, Shannon. All right. Oh, you guys are doing it. Shannon! Peter! Yeah, there you go.
Working together.
Yeah. Great job, guys.
Okay, Shannon, you got to trust Peter.
I trust Peter.
Yeah, baby steps.
Anybody I trust, it's Peter.
Baby steps.
What now?
This is my first
You have to let go of the pole and both be holding it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let go.
Okay. Baby steps. 2 steps. One. Two. Almost. Hold on. Yeah. Yes. It doesn't count unless you touch it.
I'm gonna hug it so you can move it.
You want to keep your foot on the table.
Which one is up 6 flags?
Step up.
You got it, Shannon. Yeah. Nice. Look at that. You're good, Peter. You're good. You're fine. Nice job, Shannon.
Okay, so I think when you look at it, it doesn't show. I was shaking like a leaf.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Shaking like a leaf.
Yeah. It was terrifying up there.
But and you can hear as they're yelling to us, and I say, I trust Peter, because they keep saying to me, trust Peter, and I keep saying, I trust Peter. If there's anybody I trust, it's Peter. But the most amazing thing was after we came down, and I was like, well, that's it for me for the day. I'm done for the day. But Susie Balisarian, who we were supposed to have on the show last week, but we're going to have her on. She said, I want to do this other one with you, the one that we had looked at and said was too easy, right? Where 2 people have to climb poles and then walk in on a wire and then jump off together.
It's like a balance beam.
But it's a rope.
Rounded balance beam.
Is it? Or I thought it was a rope. It's a log?
Yeah, it's a log.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Really tough stuff.
Yeah.
Really tough stuff. So, Peter and Susie, they go up to the top but Susie's taking a lot longer to get up to the top. Peter gets all the way up to the top and he's hanging out waiting for Susie. Waiting for Susie, and she's really struggling to get up the pole. And in the interim, Peter loses his balance and has to jump beforehand. And they're like, okay, well, it's all right. And Susie has just now crested and gotten to the top.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for them both to get to the top. But Peter had gotten up there significantly sooner. And nobody thought that Susie could last very long on the log because, you had lost your balance. It's hard to maintain balance. But you said, no, we're not letting this go.
Yeah.
And Peter, I wish I had videotape of this. Peter sprinted up that log where 10 minutes before that had been like a task for you. Peter ran up that log like a crazy man. And I've never seen anybody move so fast. And he was like, Susie, I'm coming for you. I'm not leaving you up there alone. And he ran up to the top of the log. And, you know, it just really, I thought that that was quintessentially you, because that was always the way you were with therapy. I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm coming up there. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get there and be with you and for you at this thing. He got up there and he and Susie jumped off the log together. But I mean, honestly, it's that kind of superhero stuff that you hear about, like firemen and policemen. You know, they just like get that burst of adrenaline and they're going to go and they're going to do whatever was impossible 10 minutes before. And
it's funny, I felt like I took forever getting up there the second time. It wasn't until someone showed me the video and I just thought, wow. And I just felt like she was terrified of doing it. And I convinced her to do it, and I just felt like I can't abandon my partner. She was my friend and partner, and I had to get up there.
But it's that level of passion that you bring to everything, Peter, and it makes all the difference. And I think it's part of the reason why we trusted you so implicitly and why your families trust you. And I gotta say, you know, I adore this man. I just think that he's incredible. But I think my bigger hope for all of you, because obviously Peter's one person and he can't be on everybody's case, I just hope you find your Peter. That you have somebody on your case who really will get on your case when it needs to be, right? Somebody who is so excited about being able to help your kid that they're thinking about it when they're driving home. Because that was always what Peter was doing. He would arrive and he would be like, so I was thinking about it and I want to try it this way. Somebody who will not give up on your kid and will not give up on you and will be there for you, because it makes all the difference. I always think back to when Jem, this was, you know, Peter had been on the case, left and come back, and Jem was in kindergarten. Peter went with him the first day of kindergarten, only stayed with him for like a week because he was training the aide. But we got to the 100th day of kindergarten, and the night before we had a clinic, and I came in and I was like, guys, it's about tomorrow's the 100th day. And the big task is all the kids need to be able to count to 100, and Jem can't. And we've been working on it for a while to prep for it. And everybody in the building had taken a crack at it and tried a million different teaching techniques.
Yeah, including me.
To get, yes, you had tried a bunch of things, and none of them had worked. He'd get to 23 and he couldn't get past 23. And everybody else was like, well, I don't know what else to do. And Peter said, let me just try one more thing. And he was like, you know, do something else. And he's got, you know, these Post-it notes, and he's, you know, tearing things up. Peter was always, you know, tearing paper and creating stimuli on the fly, right? And so he had pieces of paper that were tens. You remember this, I'm sure. And so he would, you know, and then he had 9 pieces of paper that were individual. So he would take the 9 pieces of paper and reuse them over and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and he'd have Jem count with him. So he'd get to 9, and then he would take the first 10, and he would go 10. And then he would take, and they would go 11, 12 with the 1, 2, 3, 9, right? And then he laid down a 20. And then he again went 21, 22, but he put down the ones, the first ones, and I watched my kid get it. I watched it go click.
Yeah.
And he got it entirely. And, you know, I think about how much work it took to get there. But the crazy thing is that later on, compared to how often he uses being able to count to 100, it's a blip. It's a grain of sand, that amount of time. But only if people are willing to have the passion and devote the time to get them there. That, you know, forever after, the concept of counting to 100, which is the same as counting to infinity, he got it. And it was only because you refused to give up. You were 100% sure we were going to get there. It was just a matter of how and when and where. But you were with me on that. It has to be by the 100th day, because we didn't want him to be behind.
Right. Yeah.
And he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. And you think about what he's capable of doing now, and you go, man, to teach him to count to 100 was a challenge, but the math he has to know to do the things he's doing now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's been an incredible journey, and I thank you for even just allowing me to continue to be a part of your lives and see him grow up. It's been so awesome. I always, whenever I spend time with you, I feel like, I don't know how well I blush because of my skin tone, but I just constantly when I'm done spending time with you, my mouth hurts because I'm smiling so much. I tell you, you're a major self-esteem booster, but what you have done as a mother, an advocate, I respect you, and I see your son now and I go, you say he couldn't have done it without us, but he also couldn't have done it without you. CARD is a piece of the puzzle. Good therapy is a piece of the puzzle, but when a family digs in and follows recommendation and and works on the things we're working on and generalizes and does the maintenance and does all that hard work, the result is a son like your amazing 15-year-old boy.
Well, thank you. And I talk to parents all the time about how we're a crucial part of this. We absolutely are. But it's hard. And a lot of times parents don't want to do it. Sometimes we can't do it. Sometimes we don't know how to do it. And it really takes a team of people who doesn't give up on us as well. Right. And my team, man, you guys gave and gave and gave and gave. And I'm so deeply, deeply appreciative. You will never begin to know how much I appreciate you.
Thank you.
It's a well that keeps on giving, and it's been fun for me to watch you grow and to see. And then sometimes when I'm talking to parents in the area, and we'll be talking about and I'll mention you, and they're like, we have him on our team. Isn't he amazing? He's so fabulous. I love him so much. And I'm like, yep, I know. Because it's an amazing thing that you do. And I know also that this model is recreated in so many other ways. And I'm so grateful when I was able to see, because in the beginning I thought CARD was just Peter and Sabrina and my
Sienna,
team. And Sienna. Like, I was like, well, that's CARD. Yeah. And you were the one who would always talk to me about this amazing Dr. Grandpichet, and I was like, whoever, whatever. I don't know her, she's not on my team, so she wasn't important to me. And then when I met her for the first time, I was like, oh, you weren't kidding, were you? She's a powerhouse. She's amazing, right? But I had my little pod. And to discover that these little pods, these teams exist everywhere, and that other families get the privilege of having their own pod. And I certainly hope you all get your own, Peter, because that's an experience not to be missed. All right. Well, my friend, this has been wonderful, but they're getting out the hook to take us away. But I want to thank you for having. We don't usually have the time because you're usually traveling or with kiddos or whatever, and that's always more important. But this has been so thrilling to talk with you. Want to remind people, if you want more information about a CARD office near you, go to centerforautism.com. This is going to be it for us for the week, but we are back next week with a whole new set of shows. We're back on a regular schedule of Wednesday and Thursday, and I think even Bonnie Yates is back next week. We're back to school here in LA, and we're going to be talking more about that. So until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.